Does your wealth align with your values? In what ways does your wealth affect your decision-making? How does wealth impact your family dynamics? These are the big questions we'll help you answer on your road to wealth savviness. Join Amar Shah and his guest experts in the Savvy Wealth Podcast as they share insights and stories to help align your wealth with your values and family dynamics.
Welcome to the Savvy Wealth Podcast. My name is Amar. Today we have Doug Lennick. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Why don't you give us a little bio about yourself so we know a little bit more about your background?
I started my career in the financial services industry. I started my training in the fall of 1973. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can do the math. It's a while ago. So I've been around, a long time, and I started out as an advisor and experienced working with clients and experienced working with advisors. I got into leadership because I liked helping advisors develop and progress to where I ended up running the financial services business or the retail distribution business for what was IDS and then American Express Financial Advisors and is now called Ameriprise Financial. So I did that, and I ended up with an organization of, I guess, 17,000 people that theoretically reported to me. I say theoretically because they didn't think they did, and I didn't think they did either, but that was the head count. So I had a big business and, had a big budget and flew around in a corporate jet and did a lot of stuff relative to the business. And historically, I gradually over time became thought of as a thought leader in the industry, and which is very flattering, and I'm not even sure exactly what that means, but I will say that, generally speaking, I've been pretty good at understanding where the business is going. I thought things would happen faster than they have, but things do happen, and then every once in a while they happen faster than I think they will. So it's an interesting thing. So the speed of change has been something I haven't been perfect at.
Yeah. Well, so we should let people know that how we connected, like what our story is. So I don't know if you remember this, but when I was a manager at American Express Financial Advisors, you spoke to, I guess, like all the new managers at that time, and then that's how I, kind of got to know you and your work. And then when I left USAA and started my own firm, I realized I wanted to create a firm that was based on transparency, thought leadership, and trustworthiness. And as soon as I got started, I started to get some level of success, and I decided through the power of LinkedIn, I reached out to you to say, hey, if you were going to build this now, what would you do? And that's the start of our coaching relationship.
Yeah, and there's a word that you used that I want to emphasize that I think sometimes gets skipped by. You said trustworthiness, and that's a much more important word than trusted. Because the financial services industry is littered literally with financial professionals who were trusted but were not trustworthy. And so trustworthiness is much more important than trusted.
Yeah, I agree. Where do you see the financial services industry going? What does the landscape look like today relative to kind of like what we're trying to create?
Well, what I think is happening is I think that industries are starting to converge. Specifically, I think we're seeing a convergence of the health industry and the wealth industry, and wealth services, health services. And I don't think people saw this coming, but it's absolutely here. And what we know, so we actually, and I get fortunately connected to some of the experts in the world on how all this stuff is happening. And we know for sure that excessive financial stress adversely affects health, physical health, mental health, emotional well-being. And so the role of the advisor is now changing, or is, and it's not like an explicit part of the value proposition, but it is clearly part of the value proposition. Because financial advisors, when they do their jobs well, help people reduce financial stress. And by helping them reduce financial stress, they help them improve their physical health. And so we know this is happening. We've got research from lots of leading experts in the field. And so that's a big deal. So like someone like yourself, who actually prepares your clients for the truth, which a lot of advisors don't. But if you're preparing them for the truth, you're preparing them for the truth of uncertainty. But what we do know is how to prepare people for the truth, and the truth is uncertainty. And if we can help them be prepared for uncertainty, we can help them reduce their financial stress, which will correspondingly help them improve their physical health. So when we get in touch with where our clients are, and we understand what they care about, especially those of us like myself, and I'm in that later half of the 60s, soon to be 70, I want to be healthy. I've also discovered that there are disadvantages to getting older. Like I have a central nervous system challenge that I'm dealing with, exacerbated by inflammation and my autoimmune system working against me. And so I start to concern myself with stuff like that. And so I have to take care of myself differently than I did when I was a youngster like yourself. But you have youth on your side, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's good to be young.
We're seeing through modern medicine, there's also a difference between lifespan and health span.
Yeah, wow, what a great term. I hadn't heard it said that way. I like that.
So the difference between lifespan is, the advancements in medicine and medical care can extend your lifespan, but your health span is your healthy years.
Yes.
And you have the ability to do the things that you want to do. And so one of the things that we've talked about is the alignment model that you talk about. So can you expand on that?
Well, the whole concept, one of the things that I think about is effective relationships with people and money. So everybody that is listening to us right now has relationships with money. And how effective we relate to people and how we effectively relate to money is a function of how we manage ourselves, which is a function of the decisions we make real time, which is a function of self-awareness. So to your question on the alignment model, that logic chain that I just expressed begs the question, how will I know I'm managing myself well? And the answer to that question is the alignment model. So I will know I'm managing myself well when I'm behaving in a way consistent with my goals and sense of purpose and consistent with my values. So it's it's a three-frame model. You've got values, you've got goals, and you've got behaviors. And so the alignment model is all about aligning all that up. And that's why someone like you, who actually has figured this out, you combine, you're the two-sided coin. You combine technical expertise with behavioral expertise, and people need both. And so what you do is you really help people align their behaviors, so you help them behave in a way, help them make decisions consistent with their goals, consistent with their values. And the numbers of people who can do that in the industry are few. And it's one of the reasons I like working with you. In addition to the fact that you're just a brilliant person and you've got a lovely wife and a couple of lovely girls.
Yeah. Part of what we do is connecting values, making sure your goals are in line with your values, so your goals are in line with what's important, and then looking at someone's cash flow to make sure that where they're spending their money is in line with where their values are and their goals, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is we try to extrapolate your values with also your family dynamics and wealth planning. So can you talk a little bit more about, in your opinion, why values and family dynamics are so interrelated? And why are family dynamics important in financial planning? Let's start there.
But so family dynamics, to me, include, how does the family relate to whatever is important to the family? And so come back to my values. Family is important to me. Wisdom is important to me. Health is important to me. And I've experienced in my real life, as most people have, that health is fragile. Now, I've taken my own good health for granted, and that's been the wrong choice. I am not as healthy as I have always wanted to be. I mean, I played basketball and tennis and all those things until I was 65 years old, and my hips started to fail. I started to get these various other things, and my father-in-law, who's now deceased, used to say to me, he'd say, Doug, getting older is not for sissies. and that's true. But what it does do, and goes back to family dynamics, is it does, for those of us that are paying attention, it puts an emphasis on putting our things in order and making sure that what matters is actually in some way implemented in the planning that we do. And if we work with the right kind of advisor, someone like yourself, we incorporate all of that. So, my primary issue, when I talk to my own financial advisor, who I hired in 1982.
The year I was born.
There you go. So I hired him in 1982. And I say, I have one question, same question. We meet regularly, once a quarter or thereabouts, and I just always say, if anything, were to happen to me, is my wife okay? And to the extent the answer is yes, I'm good to go. I don't need much more detail. I just want to know, and that gets into family dynamics.
And I think these days, family dynamics is also more because we have people living longer, right?
Yeah.
So I recently had a client whose their mom, so my client's their mom, who's in their mid-80s, just remarried.
Yeah.
And then you can also have blended families one level below. Like your children could get divorced or get remarried as well.
Yeah.
And some of those have impacts on investments as well as estate planning, taxes, and so.
Well, and we have to be thoughtful about all that, So I got a note literally today, this morning, before you and I got together. I got a note from this person I've known for many years, and her message or question to me was, "Are you poor now?" I basically wrote back and said, "I will never be poor." My portfolio is down,
Yeah.
but I'm not poor, and I am prepared. And then when my daughter was questioning me yesterday, I said, "I am prepared." She said, "Well, what do you do?" And I suggested she read my books. She said, "I've read your books." I said, "Well, you only got part of it right. So read them again." I said, "Because I don't have time to write to you in a text message what it took me a whole book to write." And so I said, "Read Financial Intelligence, read Leveraging Your Financial Intelligence." Because she was saying, "I know one of the things you talk about is the certainty of uncertainty." And I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Prepare yourself for the truth, and the truth is uncertainty." And I said, "And we do that with the smart money philosophy." I said, "So you got half of it right. You got the certainty of uncertainty. Now make sure you understand the smart money philosophy, because that's how you prepare for the certainty of uncertainty."
What is the certainty of uncertainty? Expand on that piece, because we talk about not knowing the future, right?
Yeah.
But you also have a framework of simplifying of outcomes, right? We're alive or we're dead. We have good health or we have bad health.
Yeah.
We have good markets and we have bad markets. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
You just said it pretty well. The truth is we don't know what's going to happen. And on the list of things we don't know how long we're going to get to live. So I have no idea how long I get to live. My parents are both deceased. My father-in-law is deceased. My mother-in-law is 90 years old. She's still alive, healthy, lives on her own, drives her own car. So I didn't know my mom would die as a result of a car accident. I had no way of knowing my dad would just die in his sleep. I had no way of knowing my father-in-law would end up in a nursing home and eventually pass away. And I had no way of knowing that my mother-in-law would be this healthy, this relatively late in life. Depending on how one looks at it, 90 is still a pretty mature age. So you're not a spring chicken when you're 90, but she's just in wonderful health. I have no doubt she can definitely become one of the centenarians. And so we don't know. So it starts with this notion of uncertainty. How long I get to live is uncertain. While I'm alive, how healthy I will be is uncertain. And while I'm alive, what the markets will be doing, going up, going down, is uncertain. I mean, there are many things that we cannot predict. And so the positioning of preparing for uncertainty isn't about getting really good at predicting the future, because none of us will ever get there. It is about preparing for the possibilities. And that's why the smart money philosophy exists, which is we will prepare ourselves for the truth, and the truth is uncertainty. So I'm going to be prepared financially for dying, because death, no matter when it happens, if I'm your age, or if I'm my age, or if I'm older, the reality is that the death itself is it's a financial event, and there are financial implications associated with dying. if I'm not dead, I'm alive. Which is what I am today, happily and thankfully. And while I'm alive, I'm either going to be sick, hurt, or in need of some kind of care, or I'm going to be healthy. And I'm sort of a quasi guy, because I'm mostly healthy, but I've got a couple of health issues. So I'm dealing with the reality of health issues, and I use insurance to help me pay for the costs associated with dealing with those health issues. Some people end up in an assisted living facility or a nursing home or the hospital. I thankfully blessed, I'm not any of that. But I do have some health issues. And those health issues, I wouldn't want to have to pay for all the things I need out of pocket, and so I have insurance. So when we think about sick, hurt, in need of some kind of care, we think about things like long-term care. We think about disability income. We think about health insurance. We think about, all that kind of stuff that nobody wants to deal with, but it's very, very helpful. I'll go back to my father. My father ended up in an assisted living facility, but he didn't have any long-term care. So his personal wealth was drained to cover the costs of living there.
And your mother-in-law is still alive.
My mother-in-law is still alive, and my father-in-law, thankfully, had long-term care. And so when he was in a nursing facility, most of his expenses, which were like $14,000 a month, most of that was covered by insurance. But $14,000 a month, if you've got no insurance, is a lot of money. It's a lot of money when you do have insurance. But you've got to have that covered. And then when it comes to, just hopefully being healthy, alive, dealing with the markets, things are going to be good or they're going to be bad. And so sometimes the markets are good. And we've experienced that, certainly. We've seen the Dow, pushing 30,000 and then we saw the Dow go under 20,000.
Right.
So that's a pretty big drop. And I've been in the industry long enough. I remember, like when they said a 3,000 point drop was the biggest drop ever. Well, I remember when the market itself, when the Dow wasn't 3,000, when there was no 3,000 points to drop. If it had dropped 3,000 points, it would have been underwater. Yeah. It would have been under zero. And, and I remember 1987. I remember Black Monday. I remember October of 87. I remember what happened at that time. And I was young and I didn't think a hell of a lot about it. But retrospectively, I realized, wow, that was a big deal. And, and then 9/11, and then 2008, and now, these things happen. And so preparing ourselves for that is really what we're talking about when we talk about the application of the smart money philosophy in the application of the alignment model relative to what matters most, which are our values.
And how we do that is through starting with values and understanding your family dynamics. I would say that's step one.
Yeah, you do that right now.
Yeah.
You're doing it. I really respect what you're doing. I think you're doing it right. Plus, you're smart as hell, which puts you way ahead of me. So you've got, you're like a CFA. To get to be a CFA, you got to be really smart. I could never have done that.
So it was one of my values, right? Growing up, education was a big piece of my values or my family's values. Right?
Yeah.
So The CFA was definitely a challenge, but it was important for me to get further education in the financial services industry beyond just the Series 7 and 66.
Yeah.
And so it became important to me. And then,
Well, yeah. I mean, you actually understand the business from a technical, fundamental side, and so the science of the business you get, but there's two sciences, and the other is the behavioral science.
Part. Yeah.
And I think you also get that, and so and it's a rare combination. So the people like you are really rare and really valuable. So to the extent you are willing to serve more people, you should accept more clients.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. And maybe that's a good place to end. So if you're watching this, if you have an advisor that's maybe not working with the whole family, or an advisor that's not connecting the dots between values, goals, and behavior, reach out to us. My phone number is on the bottom here, 1-800-310-2828, and our website is clientfirstcap.com. Thank you.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Client First Capital LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Client First Capital LLC and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Client First Capital LLC unless a client service agreement is in place.